Well, first and foremost, happy Friday, everyone. I hope you have had a great week. My name is Beth Doors. I serve as the Associate Director for Campus Life, and I am so excited for you to be engaging in our summer engagement series focused on student employment. We have here today our very own James McDonald, who's the Assistant Director for the Student Financial Services. And so he's going to talk to us a lot. Fun fact, he is a legend here at WashU, so I think he has a little bit of history to talk about too, if you want. But great person to talk to. We're thrilled to engage in student employment. So James, you're up.
Thank you, Beth. Welcome everybody, and I'm going to start this by throwing out there, if you can guess my little virtual presentation background. You can put it in chat, and certainly the first person that's able to guess it will get a prize when you arrive on campus, and if enough guess it, we'll see how far it goes. So think about it. If you toured campus, this actually served as the first library for the university. So it's one of my favorite places. I believe it will still have tables, and you'll all be able to hang out there. But today I wanted to first thank you for giving us some of your time on a Friday. And I also wanted to take you all through what student employment opportunities look like at Washington University. And maybe at a certain point, I might stop and we'll take some questions, but then certainly have time for questions at the end. So jumping in here, so Beth, we tried this earlier and it worked just, oh, here we go. All right, so what are we going to talk about in our session overview? We're going to talk about what does it mean to be a Washington University student employee. We're going to talk about navigating the resources so that you can get started as an employee. And then we're going to talk about common questions. So things that students over the years have asked, and we'll give you those answers. Some of the questions might seem a little, maybe one or two jarring. For the most part, things are fine here, but we want to make sure we talk about them. And then connecting with the Career Center. So a lot of times people think, you know, I'm doing this job, maybe it's research, maybe it's just in the library shelving a book, but they're not really connecting what those skills are that they're putting with work study and how it's going to translate afterwards. And so starting early to connect with the Career Center is one way that you'll be able to kind of form all those skills into something that can translate into something afterwards. One thing I do want to mention right off the bat, so for students, you'll be a part-time employee. And I think one thing that we forget a lot about students, adults, when you're an employee, others are going to see you as the face of that entity that you're the employee for. So you will be WashU now to the outside world that you're working for. So if it's a remote work, if you're doing a tutoring position to all these little kids, K through 5, they are going to see you as WashU. So it's something to put in the back of your mind, certainly, or maybe before you start each day at work, that you now are representing that feeling that made you want to come and be part of Washington University. So each year we have right around, I'd say, 3,000 undergraduate students that work and earn a paycheck from Washington University. So I know sometimes that's a little surprising. People are like, wow, I didn't think that many people were working at WashU. But you have to think about it, how big WashU is. We have the med school campus, we have the main Danforth campus, and we even have 2 other places. And we have a research center called Tyson Research Center. So students will work in all these different areas, and they'll earn a biweekly paycheck for the hours that they work. Not so great news. You are classified as a part-time employee, but you do not have benefits. So what does that mean? You don't have benefits. Well, you don't have sick time. You don't have vacation. So you're just getting paid for the hours that you work. And the last point that we touched on, others are going to see you as the face of WashU. So again, think about that. If you're on the phone with an alum and you're calling for a donation, they're going to see you as themselves. They're going to see you as Washington University. Traveling on the Metrolink, every one of you will have access to a free Metrolink pass, and that will help you to get to different places on campus. But if you have a uniform shirt like I have here, and you're wearing that, again, they're going to see you as Washington University. So just keep that in mind as you're representing yourself and the university. So where are students working? How are they working? About 800 students work through the WashU Federal Work Study program. So a lot of times students think, you know, oh, I don't have federal work study. Am I going to be able to work on campus? And that answer is yes, you are going to be able to work on campus. In fact, 2,000 students do not have federal work study, and they are working on campus. So what that tells me is if you really want to find a job on campus, our office, the financial aid office, career center, even individual departments will have listings in their websites for jobs where you can find jobs on campus. I do expect for 2020, we are already having requests for jobs to be remote and also jobs to be in person. So if you're in the surrounding area, if you're in the dorms, you're still going to be able to come onto campus and work. And if for some reason that made you not super comfortable, there should be remote opportunities. Namely, we're trying to start up remote tutoring positions. And I know a lot of incoming students, I want to say well over 100 of the federal work study students had indicated they would like to tutor. What does the work landscape look like? Well, if you didn't know it already, I'm going to tell you now, there are 4 campuses where we have students working. So from left to right on the top, the Danforth is our main campus. That's going to be where you're having your classes, where most of your activity is taking place, and there will be jobs on our campus, the main campus. West Campus will have things like it has an off-site library, it has alumni development, it has some financial operations, it has the investment arm of Washington University. I'm not sure if the investment arm of WashU is actually taking undergraduate students. Possibly maybe that's an internship or something in the summer, but that's there on West Campus. Students can actually walk there. I'd say it's probably a little bit over a mile. I think I've walked it one time. There's a shuttle that'll go there though, and that'll get you down there pretty quick. And then also you can take the Metrolink, which is the light rail system for St. Louis. Bottom, left to right, we'll have the medical campus. So a lot of students that are PNP, they really want to try to get into research. And so there are going to be opportunities down on the med school campus. Certainly a smaller number. I think when we did the last look at information, it was only about 480 work study students on the med campus. We didn't measure the non-work study, we just measured the work study ones. And certainly I know we want to increase that, but the pediatrics, neurology, peds critical care, I think there were about 10 different peds divisions down there that are using work study students. Some of them may have pre-qualifications on their job descriptions, meaning they want you to have Chem 111, Chem 112, some skill sets already formed. It doesn't mean that I would pass over that job description if you're looking at it. What it means is you may want to actually call them and tell them a little bit about your history. Is it okay to send a resume? Sure, you could send a resume to them. You could email that to them and show some of the research that you've already done. And then North Campus, this is in the Del Mar Loop area. And so you can also reach this by the Metrolink, although I'll say it's a little more cumbersome. You actually have to take the train one stop, get off, wait for the next train, take the train one stop the other way back, and then get off and you'll be at North Campus. North Campus has many fun things like student accounting, student billing. So if you're getting your bills, that's where they're coming from, North Campus. They don't have a walk-in office though. If you want to ask a question about bills, it's all going to be call-in. So that's what you'll be doing at North Campus. How are you finding a job? Well, some of the jobs we're going to go through your work study applications and we're going to be able to match you to a position. Okay? Some jobs you're going to actually find on your own. I think this year is going to be a little bit different. So the application, of course, was made prior to the pandemic. So think about like the Athletic Center, Kemper Art Museum, the Olin Library. I think there's 10 libraries total. So all of those will have limited capacity. So if we had 100 students say that they want to do the library, well, we might only be able to put 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, probably not all 100. But there will be enough different opportunities out there where you will be able to find something on campus. And so I want to take a little bit of time to lead you through something that some students help prepare for us through the Career Center in terms of preparing ahead of time for the job. So what might that look like? Well, let's think about that. You want to do something in the biology department. So where do you first start? You see a job online, you see something that's interesting. As odd as this might sound, fruit flies was a very popular job. And so the professor needs their fruit flies fed consistently at a certain time, and they really help with a lot of research in terms of growing things along, in terms of studying things. But you probably want to know a little bit about this professor. Who are they? How long have they worked for WashU? Maybe some of the things that they've published. Find out if there's a reporting structure. Find out work requirements, duties that they might have. Anything that you can find out, a lot of it might be visible on the website. And what that is going to do is if you gather that information and you have that information, even if you're on a Zoom call or if you end up face-to-face with a mask on, of course, you'll be able to have that conversation. And you'll be able to talk to them about what you saw, what you learned, what you see that they're doing. And that creates kind of a instant connection where the employer knows, oh, wow, this person actually did a little bit of homework. They know a few things. I'm not saying you have to memorize everything. I like to break things down into like 1, 2, 3, like 3 quick things. And then you can talk about those things. Once you're hired for the position, once they tell you, yes, we want to hire you, you have to keep in mind people are from all over the world working at WashU. Some people have been at WashU 1 year, 1 month. Some people have been at WashU 30 years. So you want to talk to them because if you're starting off on that first day, even if it's remote or if it's in person, it would be good to have kind of a listing of expectations. As the person who directs the work study program, I do talk with the employers and I try to tell them, these are new students, first time stepping on campus. One time we moved our presentation to the employers to a location that's not well known. And it was interesting how many were complaining about how it took to get here. But we spun that into a little bit of a kind of a story for them, telling them, think about how many students know what this campus looks like and how they're feeling when they go to their first job. So we try to impart those things, but sometimes people have done their jobs for so long. As a student, you need to be empowered to give feedback and say, thanks for this position. Here's what I understand that you want me to do. And that's always okay to do that. Shoot an email back, ask a question. If there's something that you see maybe on a website or something that could be better, offer that as a suggestion. Worst thing that they say, no, we don't have time to do that, or it's already being worked on by another student, but it shows your initiative. And that's something that you're going to want to grow, starting from when you step on campus all the way to the point when you leave. If they give you written instructions, things that you're clear about, that's awesome. If it looks like something might have a due date and you don't see a due date in there, I would say ask or put it out there. I think I can get this to you by this time. One thing not in the slides, but I'm going to just throw out kind of as a little cautionary piece. You're here on the campus to do first and foremost study and do your academics. The pandemic is certainly crazy. It has created a lot more, I'll say, work in different areas, but by no means should any employer be, if they're telling you we want you here from 1 to 3, or we want you working on this project for 2 hours today, they shouldn't be emailing you or texting you at different times. And if they are, either let me know or shoot an email back to the employer and say, you know, hey, just to let you know, if you send me one and it's after 5, I'm not going to respond to it until I come back on for work tomorrow or Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Does that make sense to everybody? I think so. And that may not happen. That just might be my imagination that it could be happening, but it should not. So again, academics first. Okay, so now you're getting hired. You're going to have these student employment resources, or maybe you want to show an employer that you do have work study, or maybe they ask you and you're not sure if you have work study. What can you do? If you have financial aid, you can go to financialaid.woostle.edu. You can go into your MyFA Access portal, and you can actually pull up your information. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see that for students who have work study, it'll actually tell you your work study eligibility. It'll tell you earnings to date, which should be 0 because you haven't started working yet. And it'll have a link to the human resource system. In the human resource system, that's where you're going to find your W-2, which we'll talk a little bit about. That's where you'll find information for entering your timesheet. So everything is electronic and online, and your employer should walk you through these things. Career Center will have, they use a program called CareerLink. And so you can actually Google Career Center. If you go to woostle.edu, just Google Career Center, and it should be the first hit that comes up, but they'll have that career link for some on-campus jobs as well as some jobs and internships. Probably the right time to talk about when would students see jobs online, or when would we see their information about assignment information. We are targeting September 7th for students that have work study to show assignment information that we know about, but we'll still be working on assignments during that week. Okay, so if it's blank, don't be too concerned. As far as when can you actually start looking for jobs, it'll happen that first week that you arrive on campus. So that's September 14th is when students can actually use links that'll share jobs online that are open and they're looking for people to start working. When you find something, when you get hired, you're going to go through a process at the university that's termed onboarding, okay? And so what onboarding means is that the university has to bring you on board as a student employee. And so I'm not going to read through this whole slide to you, but what I would like you to, if you're taking any notes or if you're writing down anything or if you're not writing down anything, I do want you to write down something right now. So on number 2, I-9 verification, okay? Write down Form I-9 or write down I-9 verification. And after this meeting is done, or sometime over the weekend, certainly before you leave to depart for Washington University, please take the time to look up Form I-9. It is a government form. It is required that the university or if you work at a pet supply place, if you work at a hardware store, any organization where you're going to work and be paid, the organization is required to have this form on file. and it's not a joke. It's like a $10,000 fine to the organization per offense for each one of these that is not filled out correctly. It's a fine for WashU, not you. But the form requires very specific pieces of documentation. Okay, so yes, one of them, of course, is going to be a driver's license, but they're not going to accept a copy of a driver's license. So there's a whole bunch of pieces of documentation that you can bring, but they have to be original pieces of documentation. They cannot be a certified copy. They cannot just be a regular copy. It has to be the actual document. And so that's important. Every year, I would say there's some students, it delays them starting to work by, 1 week, 2 weeks. Our parents are upset, like, how do I send my student this document? Do I send it certified mail? Am I having to FedEx it? You don't want to have those headaches once you're on campus. You want to find that information out prior to stepping foot on campus. If there are any questions about that, put them in chat. And then when we get to the end, we'll make sure we address those. So the next fun part, if I know for a lot of students, at least in the past when we've been in person and we've talked, this is kind of the area where we talk about who has for whom will this be their first job. So a lot of hands will actually go up, and there's a lot of students other than maybe a babysitting or tutoring or some things. You all have been so awesome and so focused on working toward getting here. Some of you have not held a first job before. Or you may have not held a first job that's kind of in an office environment or a research environment. So the funds that you're earning will be taxable income earnings. That means you can have withholdings taken out for Social Security. So you're starting to earn towards Social Security, for Medicare, Medicaid at the end of the calendar year. So if you're working this fall, at the end of this fall, you will get a W-2. And with that W-2, it may mean that you do want to file a tax return. Maybe you only made $500 and maybe they withheld only, I don't know, I'm making stuff up here a little bit, $25 in taxes. But maybe you can get all of that money back if you file your tax return. A good system to use at Washington University, if you haven't looked at it yet, is one.wustel.edu. You can add in different things like Res Life, financial aid, things that are of interest to you. And this is kind of like a one source, so you don't have to go around looking for a ton of things. WashU will offer direct deposit. I've already seen a lot of you have set up direct deposit through your student account, but you will still have to set up a direct deposit for your paycheck. So for your student account, everything comes from student accounting. For work study or for working on campus, everything comes through payroll. So there are two different entities. So it can still go to the same bank account, but you're having to have two forms on file. And now if this works again. So kind of some common student questions we want to talk about. So how much will I be paid? That's one of the first ones. Well, WashU is what's called, we have I think a higher than federal minimum wage. So it's $9.45 an hour. I think it's set to go up again in January 2021. Ultimately, your department will set that rate. Can you ask for a higher wage? Sure, you could ask. You could say, I'm working on Saturdays or I'm working Saturday nights. Could I have, 25 cents or 50 cents an hour higher wage, differential wage during that time period? Never hurts to ask. Documents that are going to be needed. Again, we talked about the Form I-9. So you're going to look at those things. Don't forget to do that. If you don't feel comfortable working in a pandemic, we've already had that question. I have work study in my account. Well, work study isn't taking anything off your student bill. It's just simply there to earn you funds to help you have money to maybe go out to eat. I would say go to a movie, but I don't know if the movie theater is open in St. Louis yet or not. Go to the mall. The mall is certainly open, and you can take the Metro Metrolink there. You can take a shuttle there to the Galleria Mall. And also too, I think there's a Target that's reachable via the Metrolink. So it's designed to just give you some money in your pocket, or to make the parents laugh, designed so you don't have to call home for money to your parents, okay? If you don't want to work, you want to focus on academics first. You want to get that first quiz under your belt, or on your records, or first test on your records, and you want to see how you do. You can delay starting to work. Nothing happens. If you get sick and you can't go to work, maybe you don't have a remote job, maybe it's in person at the athletic center. Well, you certainly don't want to come in if you're sick, whether it's, you just have a headache, whatever it is, you're sick and you can't come in. Communicate that with your supervisor. Let them know. Every year we will have at least 1 or 2 students who will decide, oh, I'm sick, so I'm going to go ahead and call Beth. I'm going to have Beth come in and work for me. Well, probably not the best idea, because maybe they have something else, or maybe they were going to decide not to use anybody that day. So call the supervisor first to see what they want to have done. Sorry guys, it keeps freezing for going forward. So do you have to be assigned to a position? That answer is no. We certainly will work to assign students when possible, but you don't have to be assigned. Finding your own job, we went over a little bit already. You're going to go on to financialaid.wustal.edu. And to clarify, you do not need to have work study to use that website. Any student can use financialaid.wustal.edu. Any student can sign into MyFA Access with your WUSTL key. Everybody should have their WUSTL key by now. And then from there, you'll click Student Employment. Every student can do that. And then it'll ultimately, that first week of classes, it'll have a Search Open Jobs button.
James, we got a question here. We have a question. It's can we still get a job on campus if we weren't designated to be eligible for federal work study?
Mm-hmm. So good question, and that answer is yes. You can still get a job on campus if you weren't designated to have work study. I've seen a lot of students, a lot of you have been busy winning outside scholarships, and sometimes when you win outside scholarships, because WashU lets those stack on top of our dollars, the federal government will take back their work study. So if for some reason it was reclaimed by the government, you can still work on campus. So in that, keep in mind the slide early on that we started off with, only 800 students had federal work study. 2,000 were working that did not have federal work study. If you need to stop and focus on your academics, again, that's fine. You can do that. You can work 5 hours a week. You could work 10 hours a week. I wouldn't recommend it, but sometimes we have students that work 20 hours a week. You could work just fall, you could work just spring. So it's your choice. This is something that you have access to, and you choose how you're going to control it. Like I said, maybe a few jarring questions. Can I be fired or let go? The answer is yes. So even for myself or Beth, Missouri is what's called an at-will state, meaning we just walk into work one day and they say, oh, we don't need you anymore. No more work for you. So that is being let go. Can you be fired? I would say maybe every other year we do have a work study student who is terminated or fired. There is no permanent record, but usually it's for something after the supervisor has given kind of what I would call written warning. Like, you said you were going to work 5 times in a month and you called off 4 of the 5 times. And they said, look, you can't do that in November. We have work that needs to happen. You have to be here. And so then you call off 3 of the 5 times. At that point, they're probably going to say, look, we need to have somebody else. It's not working with this schedule. So we're going to have to terminate you. Again, sounds worse than it is, but you won't be working for that department. You can then go on and work for another department. And again, no permanent record, but you have to, just like you have academics that have to be kept up with, the university has work that has to be kept up with. So if they're offering you something, paying you, take it seriously. Will we have remote jobs? Yes. What if I'm asked to do something that I think is unethical? I'm thinking when we talk about this one, students think like, I would not have thought about this, you know, that this question would be on there. So what are we? One of the things Washington University is what? A research institution. So there could be maybe something you're helping with research, and a PI, a principal investigator, says, you know, we're not going to use any of that data. Throw all that data away. And that concerns you. Well, we have a compliance hotline. We have a compliance office. The hotline that you see there, that number, the 4998, is anonymous. They don't record your number. They don't record name. You can just leave it there and somebody would check that out. I can assure you every day, even now in this pandemic, probably a day doesn't go by that there's not an auditor from some outside entity on campus looking at something. And as citizens, we would want them to look at it at the university. You know, there's a lot of government funding that come through here from the National Institute of Health and other agencies that fund a lot of things. So these hotlines are valid. If you're having issues with another coworker or supervisor, I marked open discussion because I'm hoping that we can have a few typed answers into the chat. But what would somebody do if they're having an issue with another coworker or supervisor? Anybody have an idea of how they might approach that? And I'll give just a few seconds and hopefully a few typed in the chat here. So a few of the things that we would want to look at doing, you know, certainly if it's a coworker, you're going to talk with your supervisor. If it is your supervisor, there should be a director in that office, so you could talk with the director. You could also call my office. You could call the financial aid office and talk with us, even if it's not work study. If that's something, our office is something more comfortable, you can ring us and we will follow it up. So there shouldn't be anything that, you know, if you're having issues that can't be resolved. Last common question, you know, can you have more than one job on campus? And that answer is yes. So we will have students that are just wanting so much to be a reading tutor to help young children K through 5 in the area. So they might only be able to tutor 3 hours a week, and then they will be working for the biology department for another 5 hours a week. So you can have multiple jobs on campus. And it may be that one department pays you through work study and another department decides, you know, they're not going to do the work study program. They're just paying you from, I don't know, a research grant that they have. So there might be reasons that you're not always just paid directly through work study. Connecting with the Career Center. So now think about it. We get through a whole year at WashU. We've learned new skills. We've met supervisors. We've met coworkers, and we want to now pull that information together. Again, I would go on wustel.edu and just Google Career Center, and it'll pull that up for you, and you'll be able to create your own portal. And in that portal, you'll be able to start putting some of these skills. So that kind of brings us to the end of the presentation. And if there are specific questions, let's see if I can end this slideshow. So if there are any specific questions, if you all want to ask them or if you want to throw them in chat, I can take a look at that and we can, oh, I see Beth put a few other things in there. Thank you. We can answer specific questions for you. And if we don't, we just all have minutes back in our day. Well, if there aren't going to be any questions, I'm going to leave one other thing for an email. You can email workstudy@woostel.edu, and I will type that in there. And you can email that question into us, and we'll go ahead and get it answered for you. So if I'm looking at chat now, is that everything, Beth? So nobody guessed the location? Oh, somebody did. Okay. Oh, yes, somebody did. Congrats.
Well, thank you so much, James, for all of your great knowledge. And thank you to all of you who joined us today. We do have, as a reminder, one last session today. Campus Life is going to be at 4 p.m. And then if you're looking to get involved or learn more about some of the different departments, our virtual union activities fair is happening all next week. So we look forward to connecting virtually or in person. So have a great day and a weekend.